Good morning. Welcome to Law Power Hour. It's spring. The snow's going away. I still can't believe it. There's still a little bit of snow in the backyard, but it's going away. Mr. Karamoko, thanks for coming today.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for having me.
Well, I should call you Attorney Karamoko. Look at him. He's so young, handsome, fine lawyer, great background. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, good morning. Good morning to the audience. My name is Jelani Karamoko. I'm an attorney here in Detroit. Originally from Detroit, born and raised on the west side of the city. Uh, I moved away from Detroit originally for college, eventually for law school, and moved back home to Detroit to practice law and get back to the city that raised me.
He's got some credits, though. He went to fine law school called Harvard,
Yes, sir.
and a friend of mine's president of the university now,
Yes, sir.
Lawrence Bacow.
I did. It was an exciting time. I didn't get a chance to see President Obama while I was at Harvard Law School, so that's my one regret. But it was a great university, and I really enjoyed it.
What's wonderful, though, he's brought his education back to Detroit. He didn't go to New York. He didn't go to Washington, D.C. He didn't go to California, to ride the wave based upon his education. He came back here. He's made an investment in the city, and that's why he's on our show, because
Absolutely.
he's made an investment in the city. He's going to be here practicing. Now, I was reading in your background about your experience with the land bank, and I think it's really important for our listeners to understand how they can avoid getting their property picked up by the land bank.
Mm.
I think it's really important because a lot of our listeners get into trouble. I had the pleasure of having our treasurer on,
Mm-hmm.
and he was very helpful. In fact, he was very kind because if someone has a financial problem due to a disability, he's opened his doors to try and help them, which is, something that normally isn't done. I know in Oakland County, we have a whole lot of problems because in Oakland County, the treasurer of Oakland County is not as interested in helping the community as the treasurer in Wayne County is. So tell me, what did you do with the land bank? We're going to start there and then we're going to work through this whole process.
Well, first I moved back to Detroit in 2013 when I graduated from Harvard Law School, and I joined the Detroit Land Bank in 2014. So this was 4 years ago when the Detroit Land Bank was first being reorganized and restaffed. I was one of the first attorneys hired at the Detroit Land Bank and was there when the Duggan administration wanted to use the land bank for new programs and new purposes. So while I was at the land bank, I had the opportunity to work across most of the programs that the land bank now implements. I worked in the auction program, the community partner program, the side lot program, uh, but my specific role was the principal attorney for the legal team. So there was a team of about 8 attorneys, also a staff of paralegals that I managed along with the deputy counsel for serving the land bank's legal needs, but also for the nuisance litigation program that the land bank also implements.
Now, let me ask you a question. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but maybe I am. I have a house. I lose the house at a tax sale. And it goes in to foreclosure, goes through the whole process. I'm not going to go through all the mechanics of the process.
Hmm.
And it comes up for sale. And I say, my house was sold, but I didn't know it was being sold and it's sold at the land bank. Can I get that property back?
Yes, and it will be a process.
Okay, now listen up out there because if this is real important for family and friends. If you've lost a house, there is a process of either getting your house back or getting a comparable residence. Isn't that true?
I I'm not for specific areas. I know they are doing a home swap program. I believe it's for the Delray neighborhood, from my understanding. But there's a method for you to get your property back if it has been listed for sale with the land bank. It will be a challenging process, but you do have a legal right to notice. So if you did not have proper notice that there were proceedings happening against the property, you do have a legal right to challenge losing that property. The practical process of getting it back will be the land bank has a compliance program for vacant properties, and they will want you to agree to enter the compliance program and be monitored by the land bank before they release the property back to you. So there is a legal right that you have, but the practical process will be agreeing with the land bank and completing its compliance program for that vacant property that you're trying to get back.
Good morning. Hello? We have a caller out there, and we're not getting a response. We'll check our equipment. Call us back in a minute. Hello? Now, on this issue, you're practicing law today and you're handling property
Yes, sir.
law. What else are you handling?
I handle property law and business law primarily because I try to focus my law firm on helping local Detroiters do business, do better business, and do more business, because the economic need that we have in the city is so great that I really want to help serve the small businesses in Detroit that are operating or want to operate, people who have a new idea for a business or a nonprofit, and also the real estate side of Detroiters that are looking to acquire property, want to sell property. They may have a portfolio that they already own that they want to develop or see what other options they have. So I really focus my law firm and my legal services on the business needs and real estate needs of local Detroiters.
Well, you know, I drive around Detroit all the time. And for years, even going back as far as the Kilpatrick administration, and that's years ago. It doesn't seem like it, but it is. I used to go to the administration and ask them this silly question. Why aren't you developing the neighborhoods? Because if you develop the neighborhoods and you build businesses in the neighborhoods, then you're going to have people who live in the neighborhoods, have their children want to get jobs in the neighborhood, and they're going to want to learn about the businesses in the neighborhood, and it's going to create an opportunity.
That's right.
And there's so many vacant locations in the neighborhoods for the development of businesses. And I know they may sound like mom and pop businesses, but who really cares? Because a lot of big businesses start out as mom and pop businesses, whether we're talking about a diner or a cleaners or a shoe repair business. Would you agree with me that they're needed? Tell our listeners that these businesses are needed. You're a young man and you know what city of Detroit needs. You grew up here.
That's absolutely true. And as a young person who's lived in other cities, I lived in Atlanta while I was at Morehouse College. I lived in New York City for a time, and then lived in Boston while I was at Harvard Law School. The small businesses, the mom and pop shops, the stores that you stumble into while you're walking down the path, those are the places that make a city really interesting. Those are the things that create the fabric of the neighborhood that makes young people like myself want to stay and stay invested in that place, because the commercial stores are fine, the Starbucks, the Walmarts, those are all fine, but the most interesting places I've lived in, and the places that I think my generation finds really interesting and exciting, are those mom and pop stores, are those small businesses where you just can't find it on Amazon or find it at Walmart. You have to know that family or know that shoemaker or know that craftsman to really find that item that's unique and different. And I think it's the fabric of cities that really come from the people and the small businesses and ideas they have to really make their communities better.
I'm going to the seamstress when I leave today, and I'm going to have a pair of pants shortened. Now, if I had to go into a big department store and get them shortened, it'd take me 10 to 14 days. Seamstress will have them done in 2 days. It's right in the hood. That's my point.
That's right.
Okay, here we go. Good morning.
That I think my generation finds really useful.
Pardon me, we're having trouble hearing you.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes. When in Detroit, the people of Detroit has been injured so terribly, and that's like all other major cities where the black population is, that generations have lost the skill to cook a hamburger because of the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act and the Small Business Administration who financed immigrants to open up businesses and bring their own workforce. And when you look at suburbanization before then, when they moved everything out, all jobs opportunity, the community for generations. So what do the community need? The community needs income, not housing. Because have a housing without income, we back at square one. Because they can't pay for the housing, and the average rent in Detroit is $800. So would you all say that income, and if it is so, they are talking about what the universal income all over the world, that the economic world economic thing, that capitalism has got to a point of monopoly, and a few owning everything, and especially in the United States, is 90% service. So putting a business in the black community and you don't have the disposable income is just playing nilly-willy with the black community.
No, that's not true. It's not playing willy-nilly with the black community. What I'm saying, and what my guest is saying, is that we have to take a stand and we have to make the time to go to school, learn the skills, and open the businesses. And we got to start at the grassroots. You see, you got to go back historically and start at the grassroots.
And I do agree with the caller that it is about income. And that's why I try to focus my legal services and the work I do around ideas that people have for income. Because that's what a business is. People want to start a small business. You have an idea, you have a product, you have a service, and you believe it can create some income for you. But you need help with the legal structure. You need help with the filings and the paperwork. That is what I want to do here in Detroit, is focus on the economic need in the community, focus on people's need for income, because that is very critical. The real estate piece that I do is important because real estate investment, one, is a source of income. You may have opportunities to create income from housing that you own. You may have to create a group that can collectively own real estate as an investment, but it is an opportunity for income that we can take advantage of here in Detroit. The other opportunity that comes from owning real estate is the potential to create wealth. So when you own real estate, it's not just something that earns income for you during your lifetime. It's something that you can pass down to the next generation or your children or your friends or family, so they have an asset that they can own and benefit from going forward. So my law practice focus on the real estate investment and the business development, I think, is key in Detroit, and it is about creating income because people do need that here in the city. And we know what the poverty rates are in Detroit. We know the investment that historically has left Detroit. We know the businesses that have left Detroit. But it's the entrepreneurs that keep the city alive.
Okay, well, let me ask you then. What areas do you think people should be looking at to start businesses in? I mean, I mentioned a few, but maybe mine are too simplistic.
Well, it depends on the business.
And I'm not being sarcastic when I say they're too simplistic.
Well, no, I think even in Michigan, what are the major automobile companies today, 70 years ago, were small businesses. You know, these were, the Dodge brothers and these other mechanics working in garages coming up with products that over time became the big three. But the entrepreneurs in Detroit have always made the city great. Motown at one point was a small business before they grew into a major label incorporation. So the ideas that Detroiters have, I encourage them all, whether they're mechanical related, whether they're artistic related, whether they're retail or shoe shinesmen. People have so much talent and ideas in Detroit. They just need help forming it into shape.
Okay, that's the important factor. People have ideas and skills. They just need somebody to help formulate it, put it down, start it. We got another caller. Good morning.
Good morning. How you do?
We're doing well. How about you?
Good morning.
Wonderful. I need the name and location of the firm the young man is head of.
Yes, sir. My law firm is named the Karamoko Group.
Spell that, please.
Karamoko is spelled Karamoko.
Okay.
My law office is located at 607 Shelby, at the corner of Shelby and Congress Street.
Okay.
And you can contact my office at 313
Okay.
379 7007.
Once again, 379.
That was area code 313
Right.
379 7007.
7007.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, young man. Keep up the good work. I'll be look forward to meeting and working with you,
I look forward to the call. Thank you, sir.
brother.
So, you know, the point that I was making, I guess I'm taking it back a step because we've got these great schools in the city that offer the opportunity for vocational training.
That's right.
And my point that I wanted to make is that there's a lot of people sitting at home who can go to a vocational school instead of complaining about living on SSI at $790 a month. They can get off their dear olds and they can get a skill and they can go to work, whether they are running a business as a seamstress, whether they're learning how to repair shoes, whether they're learning how to set up a small candy store, ice cream parlor. We don't have these things in the neighborhoods. There's no place to go and get these things except for, and excuse me for saying this, the people who come from the suburbs come into the city and they're milking the people in the city who were living on their bridge cards, and people are going home and they're just complacent. They're just saying, well, this is the way life's going to be. It doesn't have to be that way if you don't want it to be that way.
That's right. And you can use businesses, multiple businesses, to create the income that you need. So it may appear that, well, that's just a shoe repair store or that's just a candy shop. But you can own multiple businesses where if you can create an additional 10 to 20,000 in income from one type of business, and then you can create another 10,000 of income from another type of business. Each one may appear as a small enterprise, but when you look at them together, you've now created some substantial income for yourself. So even if it starts off as a small candy shop or a small shoe repair store, that's a level of success that you can then apply to the next business and to the next business. So now you have multiple streams of income, so you can really improve your life the way you want to.
See, it's real simple where I come from. You got to roll up your sleeves, and you got to dig in and you got to work. And if you work your way through school, you learn the hard way that if you don't do that, you're not going to eat, you're not going to have a place to sleep. So you want a place to sleep, you want food, you just roll up your sleeves and work. And that's the way it goes, and you pay your bills, and you make an investment in the future.
That's right.
It takes, like you opening your law practice, that takes courage. Because you're competing with the big institutional law firms in the state of Michigan. You're in the same business. You're offering the same services, except you're offering it with a personal touch. That's you.
Yes, but I do always appreciate the people that helped me get to where I am today. So I feel an obligation that the opportunities that I've had to gain of education, to create knowledge and experiences, I do have an obligation to give those back to people in Detroit that are doing the hard work and who are really to make that next step forward, who aren't just talking about it or rehashing the same thing over the next 5 years that they did the past 5 years. Folks that are really ready to go, really want to be courageous, take that next step. I have an obligation to help those people out, because for me to make it from Detroit to Harvard Law School and back and open my own law firm, there are so many people I will have to thank for helping me make that journey possible. And we just have to help each other as Detroiters. I mean, we know the history of the city, we know the struggles people have today, and we just have to help each other. And I take that obligation personally through my practice.
Well, that's something to be proud of, that you're concerned enough to do that. But would you agree with me, as I said earlier, that there are opportunities in the neighborhoods all over Wayne County to open up businesses, legitimate businesses?
And I think the neighborhoods are the best place because there is the void that you're feeling, that there's a lack of competition. If you open a candy shop in the neighborhood, you are the only game in town. You are the only candy shop, very likely, in a 2 to 3 mile radius. So the opportunity to be the prime business for whatever your idea is, I think is greatest in the neighborhood. And you can really have a neighborhood monopoly, a small business monopoly in locations that some suburbanite or out-of-state developer or speculator, they may overlook it, but it is an opportunity for you to be that prime business in locations that people don't associate with downtown and midtown. And it's a great opportunity that will be filled eventually. So why not be filled by someone actually from that area, from that neighborhood?
And someone from the African American community, instead of having, as the man said earlier, foreign people come in, get the jobs, bring their families in, develop the business. Don't have any jealousy or contempt for what another person's doing.
Right.
Have respect for what they're doing and get up and do it yourself. That's my attitude. Is that a wrong attitude?
That's the right attitude. I think you need two things. You need knowledge and you need opportunity. A lot of folks have the knowledge or the work ethic, but are looking for that opportunity. So when both of those two come together, you can see great things happen in Detroit. So I try to make sure I can help people see the opportunities as clearly as possible. Because if you're really motivated and driven, and Detroit is a hard city to live in. It's not easy being in Detroit. People have to persevere. People have to work hard. People have to problem solve. People, they have a skill that's inherent of just being in the city.
Survival skill.
But that's hard work.
Of course it is. But the point you're making is that you're willing to open the doors at your law office, and if someone has a legitimate idea, you're willing to sit with them and tell them how to implement that idea. If they pick a neighborhood, are you willing to go out and look at that neighborhood with them, tell them it's a good neighborhood?
I usually have most of my client meetings at the site.
Okay, so then you're willing to say whether it's a good site, it's a good building, it can be worked on, they can get a decent lease, all these things that are really important to people who have no skills.
That's right.
Are you willing to tell them how they can get a small business loan?
I can point them in the right direction. It will be, and I'll be frank with people, it is very difficult to get financing in the city of Detroit still. So that's one of the major challenges that we still have. But I try to lay the options out for people. Give them the best advice possible, identify what risks they will face for the idea or business that they have in mind, and hopefully they can take that information. If they choose to retain me for services, that's great. If they choose not to, that's great. But giving people the opportunity to meet with a professional, get professional advice, and get better information on what they can do to better themselves in their neighborhood, I'm always willing to do that.
We're going to take a break for a minute because I'm running you ragged.
Are you in legal trouble? Are you in need of legal advice? Or just have general legal questions? Call 1-800-529-8721. That's 1-800-LAW-USA1. And watch Law Power Hour and get your questions answered by experienced attorneys who are experts in their field. That's Law Power Hour, hosted by Barry Keller, attorney at law. Saturdays at 10 a.m. here on WHPR Detroit Live.
Okay, off the air, we were talking about what you can do to help new businesses. Let's talk about that. Tell us what your firm can do to help people with new businesses.
So my firm focuses on real estate and business needs, and oftentimes they are related because the business has a need for a retail store, or they have a physical location in mind. So first, I try to advise owners on what type of business risk they may encounter generally with operating that type of business and owning that type of real estate.
Okay, let's hold for a second. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, I was just called. I've been just stumbled up on this station. I'm a resident of Detroit. And everything they're speaking on is true. And only point I wanted to make is I believe we need to make a new way of advertising and getting the message out of what's out there for the young kids, young youth of today for the vocational school. So a lot of people don't realize what's out there. They're not really, just not enough exposure. I went to truck driving school years ago after having a felony and going through the criminal system on drugs or what have you. And when I got myself cleaned up, I kept seeing these advertisements for truck driving school, the length of time that it was going to take and the amount of money that you possibly could make. And it got my attention. Some type of way we have to get a better advertisement to getting the message across. I do believe that would be helpful. It got me to where I'm at now. I was 35 and I'll be 63 this September. I've been driving trucks ever since. But I woke up by watching that chauffeur's training advertisement on the TV when we didn't have all these stations that we have now. But I don't know another way quickly to be able to say how to get the advertisement out. But it could be just like when people go out registering to get voters, people having registers, getting people to register to vote. You have to pound the streets, billboards, or something, because the message is not getting across strong enough.
Well, we have a solution coming up, so I'm going to take you off the air and I'll tell you about it. In June, we're going to have an opportunity fair. and this gentleman's going to participate at the opportunity fair.
Yes, sir.
And what we're going to do is we're going to bring in people from the vocational programs at the City of Detroit so they can learn about the various types of vocational training and education. I mean, it's incredible what they have, from electricians to carpenters to plumbers. I can go right down the line. We'll bring in people from the Truck Driving Institute, cosmetology, and all kinds of opportunities to get a license to start a business, because that's what you do, don't you?
That's right. And I try to focus my legal services on folks that have new ideas, entrepreneurial ideas, but may not be as good with handling the paperwork and making sure the files are in order. So, for example, I may have a client that is interested in a building for a new barbershop or whatever business idea they have, a new company or expanding their company. But if you don't handle your paperwork right and do your filings correctly, you can put your property and your business at risk. So if you're purchasing a property, you need to make sure, one, that the language in the deed is correct, that it identifies the correct type of property in the deed. You need to make sure that it gets recorded so that your interest is protected. You need to make sure that tax notice filed with the city is updated to the new ownership so that all tax notices are sent to that new owner and you don't have back taxes piling up without you being aware.
Or water bills.
Or water bills that you're not aware, which could lead to a foreclosure on the property. So you may be a great business owner, business manager, have a really great product or service, but if you don't have the right business advice and the right paperwork, your idea and your property could be at risk. So I really try to use my law firm to make sure your legal paperwork and your business paperwork is done properly. And I make sure that you're aware of what risks you have in operating a business, because we need these businesses to get started and grow in Detroit.
But you also offer the services to people who are renters, which is really important, to make sure that the building is habitable.
So that's another big need that we have in Detroit. Is you drive across the neighborhoods, you see the need for skilled tradesmen, the carpenters, the electricians. There is also a need for quality, affordable housing for renters in Detroit. There's a big need for commercial retail businesses across Detroit. And the folks that are in Detroit, in the neighborhoods, are already invested in those places. So they already have an interest in seeing more commercial retail, seeing better quality housing, and seeing more skilled trade opportunities. So that's the group that I really target, to try to find who's really serious in that group, who's really ready to take that next step, and how can I best serve them.
Interesting statistic, and I'm sure you would agree with me. I don't know if our listeners would agree with me, but it's a fact. The more business activity there is in a neighborhood, the less crime. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
That's because there's more people who are invested in the neighborhood, who want to protect the neighborhood, who want to protect the local business people. So it cuts down the crime rate.
That's right.
So by having these small businesses, and I want to tell you something about small businesses. I've been practicing for 50 years. And I've had a lot of my clients want to go into small businesses and say, well, I want to go into this business, or I want to go into this business. Well, I'm not going to minimize the businesses that they go into. But sometimes you have to go into businesses that other people don't want to go into and dirty your hands to be in business, to start making money so that you can go forward and make investments and become an investor instead of just a worker.
Yes. And even a failed business can be that first step to a successful business. So I have clients with all type of business ideas. Some I think are good, some I think maybe not so good. But even still, that experience of starting my first business, seeing what went wrong, deciding I need to start a different business instead, is all part of the learning process that ultimately is going to create the entrepreneurship we need to redevelop the neighborhoods in Detroit.
I mean, if you want to go into a place, and I can't say this on the air because we're not allowed to advertise or criticize, but instead of going into a chain for a cup of coffee in the morning, you want to go in a local place where you can have a cup of coffee and you can get a sweet roll if you want a sweet roll, or you can have a egg sandwich, whatever you want. The idea is, if the local business is there, you start developing relationships with the people that are there, and you feel comfortable going there because it's an extension of your house and your neighborhood.
That's right, and that local business is more likely to support you in return. So if you have a niece or nephew that needs a summer job, that small business is more likely to say, hey, we could use some help in the back, or we could use some help with this project over the summer, so that you have an opportunity to get some support back from that business. If you have a community event, or you have a church event, and you need someone to donate for the food or the refreshments for the event, that local small business that you've been supporting throughout the year is more likely to make a donation to you to support your activity in the neighborhood than the big foundations or some major corporation, or some grant opportunity that you apply and hope to hear back from. It is about personal relationships and having that mutual support, and the local small businesses are the commercial support that you will need at some point, whether it's, is there a part-time job here open that I can take advantage of, that a family member could take advantage of? Is this local business willing to make donations to the local nonprofits in the area? It is a mutual relationship that we need that strength across Detroit.
So your office is located where?
At the downtown Detroit, 607 Shelby Street.
Now, in addition to your law background, your wonderful education at Morehouse, you also have a business background from your studies.
Yes, I moved to New York and worked in the finance industry on Wall Street after graduating from Morehouse.
So you have a real hands-on understanding of what it takes to start a business and make it a success.
I believe so.
Okay, well, you're doing it yourself. You made an investment in your business.
I'm keeping the lights on so far.
Well,
so
how many people are working with you in your practice?
I have 2 employees.
Okay, well, believe me, from having 24 employees, I'm down to 6 now because it's a big headache having a law practice that's large. The point is, you're there, you're invested. So let's take a test run here. I want to open up a small coffee shop in the neighborhood. And I've got all these huge coffee shops, these huge chains. Whether it's got a Star next to it or Tim next to it.
Okay.
Okay? Or a Pana something next to it, the big ones where people are spending thousands of dollars a year to eat. I mean, you look at these stocks, they're mega stocks, they're successful stocks.
Right.
And I want to start a business. Do I have a chance of starting a local business where I got really good coffee?
Absolutely. Because depending on your neighborhood, there's a very high chance that the coffee company with the star hasn't made it out there yet. So in business, they call that the first move advantage, that there's an advantage to being the first to market or being the first to start a product. So if you are in most of the neighborhoods in Detroit and you want to start a business in that neighborhood, there's a very strong chance that you will have the first move advantage.
So we're going to call your law firm the First Move Advantage Law Firm then.
Maybe that's something to think about.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely, you have a chance because you are the first to that market, or you were the first to introduce a product, which is a huge business advantage.
Okay, so I want to start that business and I'm the first move in the neighborhood. There are plenty of people that will supply me with coffee and dough and everything else I need and help me get started, aren't there?
There are. You'll need, any business needs contracts for its supplies and need contracts for its sales. So those are 2 areas that you'll need to tackle up front to say, well, who are my contractors? Where are my supplies coming from? Are these coffee beans that are coming from out of state? Are they in state? Are they wholesaled from a distribution network? And how am I selling these coffee beans? Am I selling them cup by cup? And there's a receipt system is how I'm selling these beans. Am I wholesaling it to another distributor? Am I selling them as brewed cups? Am I selling them as raw bags? And people purchase the bags and brew it at home. So how things come in and how your product goes out is critical to understand from the beginning.
You know, you don't need a lot of money to make your business new or unique.
That's right.
But give your business a spin. I went to a coffee shop in Dearborn recently, and the gentleman was from Yemen. And everyone was dressed in the Yemenis clothing, and it was all about coffee that was grown in Yemen. And they were really busy. But the idea was that they had a niche that they were filling.
Right.
I don't know if he's going to be successful. I hope he is. But it was just the idea that it was different. The coffee tasted different. Wasn't my cup of tea or coffee, as you want to say, but I wanted to see it because it was a niche. Would I go back there? Yes, because it's a niche. But the idea is, if you can establish a business and make it unique and different so that people want to come there, give them something to talk about.
Right. And that's understanding, how do you add value? What value am I bringing to this product or service that's unique or different from my competition? And whether your value added is, well, my price is lower, that's why I'm creating value for this product or service, or my product is more expensive, but it's more unique, or it's more interesting, or it's a custom product as opposed to a standardized commodity product. It's very much about how do you add value, and being unique and different is a great way to add value.
You can go over on Livernois right now. It's 11:15 till about 8 o'clock tonight. There's all kinds of businesses between 6 and 8 Mile Road. They're all small businesses. So when I say they're small, they're huge investments in a lot of these properties. But they're independently owned. They're unique.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real treat to go in the neighborhood and go into all these shops. We need this all over the city.
All over the city. Absolutely. And I think you see it in pockets in Detroit, but to really spread that type of investment and development across the city, you have to use Detroiters that are already from those neighborhoods, because it takes too long for the big foundations and the developers to find their way across the entire city of Detroit. We need the local Detroiters to step up and create these spaces themselves and do that now.
Now, working in the land bank, you've traveled all over Detroit.
Yes.
So you know the entire demographics and terrain. You know where the people are living, they're not living. You know the barren areas that they're trying to rebuild. Would you agree with me that if the neighborhoods were developed, we would repopulate them if we had businesses in the support areas?
Yes, I would definitely agree.
And why is that?
Because the businesses and the housing are related, so you need both pieces together to fully have development in the neighborhood. And one thing that you notice about the neighborhoods across Detroit is Detroit has some of the best housing stock out of any city. I mean, you travel down south, you travel out west to the East Coast, and you look at the quality of homes in other cities and compare it to Detroit, and you see the difference in beautiful brick homes with stained glass features and architectural features in properties, not just in, Palmer Woods or Indian Village. You find that in homes across the city of Detroit, the east side and the west side. So there's a lot of value in the homes in Detroit. What's missing is the businesses to support the folks that live in those homes.
And these homes are really not expensive. I've had clients call me about homes over in East Indian Village, that need work, and our English Village that need work right now. And These homes are built in the late 30s and 40s. I mean, they're beautiful homes. Lead glass windows, you know, you're
Right.
talking like $35,000 to $40,000. These are gems that can be picked up. Young people should be moving in them. They should be developing the homes in the neighborhoods at the same time.
But young people want those business options as well, and that's what you find in other cities that's attractive to young people, is that I can live in a community, live in a neighborhood, but have business options within walking distance in that same neighborhood. So it's you need the business growth for the housing value to really be complete and keep folks in that neighborhood so they can walk to go order really nice food and walk to pick it up and walk back home. They can walk to a nice bar, restaurant, daycare, recreation gym, all within that same community, and live in quality housing at the same time. So having those business and commercial options, I think, will really make the neighborhoods across Detroit really attractive, because the housing stock itself is really strong.
Now, I'm telling you listeners, this is our formula for taking back the city. Otherwise, you know what's going to happen. The people from the suburbs are going to come in, and they're going to capitalize on this. They're going to work in the city and take their money back to the suburbs, aren't they?
That's right.
And who's going to pay for it?
Detroit always pays for it.
And the people of the city of Detroit are going to pay for it because they're not going to seize the opportunity.
Yes, and there is a window still in the neighborhoods of Detroit. You know, a lot of downtown, midtown, even pockets around downtown have been bought up, but there is still a neighborhood across, or there still is an opportunity across the neighborhoods. And you have to, I remember when we worked on, when I worked in New York in finance, they had a saying, you buy low, sell high. So you have to have the vision when other people don't see the value. You have to be a buyer when other people aren't interested in buying, because that's the smart way to make investment. So when you, before the out-of-towners and the suburbanites become interested in your neighborhood, you need to be interested in your neighborhood.
One of the criticisms that I hear all the time is that we've got a lot of foreign investors who come in and they buy bundles of property and they go back home and they're removed from the property and they have management companies managing their property here. Now this happened through the land bank, didn't it?
It happened before and after the land bank. So there are, through the compliance program that the land bank is implementing, they target vacant property owners, and especially large property owners that sit on vacant properties, and will try to reach an agreement for them to make repairs on that property or file a lawsuit against them. That's a lot of what I did while I was.
It's important for the listeners to
understand.
Listeners to understand this. You just don't let them buy the property and sit on it, do you?
No, there is a compliance process that the land bank will require. So whether you want to get property out of the land bank, or you have property that has been targeted because it's vacant, they will require a compliance program where you will have to make repairs, usually over a 6-month time frame.
What about vacant property? Do they have to develop that if they buy it from the land bank?
Yes, they do. They use the same compliance standards. Usually it's over 6 months, but they do grant extensions. But they want you to invest and actually repair the property up to code.
Yeah, because my point is there's no sense allowing investors to hoard property if they're not going to do anything with the property except collect it, like playing Monopoly.
Right.
At the expense of the citizenry, because we need to take the vacant areas and develop the vacant areas.
Right. And it makes it unattractive for local Detroiters that want to stay in that area. Because if I want to start a business and use the vacant home next to me for a daycare and learning center, but it's owned by some investor in China, you're limiting my you're limiting my business options in my own community. And when people feel limited in their own neighborhood, they pack up and go somewhere else. So it's a huge problem in the neighborhoods. The land bank is trying to get better compliance from them, but as you can see, it's still a major problem in the neighborhoods. But that opportunity should be going to Detroiters to really do what's needed in filling gaps in the places that they want to stay in before they get frustrated and pack up and go.
Can I, as a citizen, file a complaint with the land bank if somebody owns the property and they're not doing anything to improve it?
So your best bet would be to contact your district manager, which works out of the mayor's office. You can go online, look for, City of Detroit district manager. They're designated for each district in Detroit, and contact your district manager and file your complaint with them.
But there is a process to file a complaint, and
Yes,
the people will look into it and do something constructive. Is that correct?
that's correct.
Okay, we're going to wind it up here in a minute, but I want you to tell people how to get a hold of you.
Again, my name is Attorney Jelani Karamoko. My law firm can be reached at 313-379-7007. My firm is named the Karamoko Group. That's Karamoko spelled Karamoko.
Our last caller, how are you?
Yes, good morning. I just wanted to ask you a quick question. Now, what if your district manager is going against the community?
Then you have to escalate it to city council, which is the other public body that is set up to as an offset to the mayor's office. So the district managers report directly to the mayor's office. If you don't feel satisfied with their response or the mayor's office response, city council and pursuing your city council representative would be your best bet.
That's a great question. Thank you.
I also have a quick question as well. Can you please spell out your name again?
Yes, ma'am.
For the listeners. Thank you.
Yes, my first name, Jelani, is spelled Jelani. My last name, Karamoko, is spelled Karamoko. And again, you can reach my law firm, the Karamoko Group, at 313-379-7007.
Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And
Pleasure
I wish
to be
you the
here.
best.
Thank you. Oh, one more time. My law firm's phone number is 313-379-7007. The Karamoko Group, spelled the Karamoko, Karamoko, group, the Karamoko Group.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Are you in legal trouble? Are you in need of legal advice? Or just have general legal questions? Call 1-800-529-8721. That's 1-800-LAW-USA1.